Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is David Williams, President of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. We have a special guest today, House Minority Whip Representative Steve Scalise from Louisiana. Welcome, Representative Scalise. Boy, we got some really good, encouraging job numbers earlier today. We'll get into that later.
Yeah, David, good news. But first, good to be with you and everybody at Taxpayers Protection Alliance. Thanks.
Yeah, so these job numbers we'll talk about a little bit later, but I was shocked. I've been having a pretty bad week, and to see this positive news really, got the day going for me, and hopefully the weekend going for me too. But the first thing I wanted to start out with was tax reform, and this is something that happened 2.5 years ago. But man, this really was so important to the economy to get this passed, and it had been 30 plus years since the last time we had tax reform. So first, I just want to thank you for your leadership in getting this done. And I know it wasn't easy to get tax reform passed in 2017, but it was necessary. What were some of the obstacles that you ran into in getting tax reform done? Because I know there were a lot, but can you get into some of the specifics?
Yeah, sure, David. And I mean, it was such a monumental achievement for our country to see our economy come back. And, before COVID-19, we had the hottest economy, not just the hottest economy in the world, but maybe the hottest economy in the history of our country. And it was because we cut taxes, we gave people more of their money back, and we made our country competitive again. And that was the real challenge. And so, when you think about, geez, Steve, you were the majority whip at the time, how hard is it to put a coalition together to cut taxes? Well, let me tell you, it was very hard because you're working within confines. Number one, we saw early off the Democrats, for whatever reason, made this a partisan exercise and said they weren't participating. So immediately, yes, we've got a majority in the House. They've got a majority Republican in the Senate, but with the 60 vote guideline and the requirement that they put on themselves, when no Democrats are there, you don't have enough votes to pass something on a 60 vote margin. So the only way to do it was budget reconciliation, which means you can go to 51 votes in the Senate. The problem is then you have to get an agreement on a budget, which is always tough. And our members, amongst ourselves, again, not one Democrat's voting for it. So we put together a balanced budget, which, I've voted for every balanced budget we've had, but it's hard to put that coalition together. It's very complicated. Some members want to go even further. Some members say it goes too far. And so you have to strike that balance. And we did. And once we passed the budget, that gave us the ability to pass a bill called budget reconciliation. And it's very narrow. You can only do one. And it's narrow what you can include and what you can't include. So at that point, we're working every day with the parliamentarians, because if we went too far in what we put in that bill, then immediately when it gets to the Senate floor, they can challenge it. And if you don't meet the requirements of the Budget Reconciliation Act, they can throw the whole bill out. And it's immediately a 60 vote requirement and it's dead. So, for all that we wanted to do that we weren't able to do in that bill, we had to be very disciplined and say, if we go too far, it's all gone. We lose this opportunity. So let's focus on making our country competitive. Let's focus, how low can we go on taxes? The president wanted to go to 15%. Look, I'd love a 0% corporate tax rate, because ultimately it's all passed on to the consumer anyway, and it affects your global competitiveness. We were at 35% globally. We were no longer competitive because we had the highest corporate rate in the industrialized world. So we wanted to get below the world average. That was the first step. The world average was 23%. We wanted to go even lower, but then you get into the budget limits. And so we settled on 21%. And then the Senate wanted to make it effective over years. We wanted to make it effective immediately, so we could get the immediate bounce out of it, not make the mistake of the 1986 reform. And then as you can see all of these complications, it shows you why it's taken us over 30 years to reform this broken tax code, because everybody's got their own take on what they want in it. And you can only put so many things in it, because if it gets too full, it blows up. That was what happened. Those were the challenges. But I will say everybody worked well together. Kevin Brady led the effort on the House side as chairman of Ways and Means. Phenomenal job that he did. It was his bill. I tell him he's the guy who's got the pen that wrote that bill. And it goes to the Senate. We worked well with the Senate, and ultimately worked very well with President Trump, with his whole team. You got Larry Kudlow over there. You got a great group over there at the White House that we worked very closely with to make it happen. And nobody could have predicted how successful it became once we passed the bill.
And something you said, bothers me, that it was a partisan issue, because when it was passed, we saw people, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, Independents, benefit from tax reform. We saw
Yeah.
bonuses. We saw unemployment go
Right.
down. We saw,
Lowest unemployment in the history of our country for African Americans and
yeah,
Hispanics, and not one member of the Black Caucus voted for it. Not one member of the Hispanic Caucus. So I mean, I thought that was a big mistake on their side, and it definitely defined them as they're the party for higher taxes. We're the party for lower taxes. You know what? As I said, if it becomes partisan to balance the budget and cut taxes in Washington, put me in the party that's for balancing the budget and cutting taxes, and that's what ultimately happened.
exactly. And cutting the corporate tax rate, talk about another critical step, because, we won the race to the top when it comes to the highest corporate tax rate, and it hurt the country. We saw companies leaving. We saw inversions. We saw the Burger King, Tim Hortons inversion. We saw other inversions. And once the corporate tax rate was cut, we saw the exact opposite. We saw businesses coming back to this country, and is reflective in the unemployment numbers. And it's just amazing how much of an effect that had. And I was speaking to friends in Australia afterwards, and they go, "Oh no, now we have to lower our corporate tax rate, because this is what
Right. And
competition
other
does."
countries are having that debate. And look, I mean, this is why your underlying conservative beliefs, you've got to have faith and trust in what we know works. And, free market economics is under attack right now. Capitalism is under attack. You see the socialist movement going on, and it's scary to see how many young kids are embracing socialism. You look at polling and they don't really understand what the true meaning of socialism is, which is a failure of some of our higher ed institutions. But when you look at what really does work, when you cut taxes, it actually creates more jobs and more revenue. The
Yeah,
myth that they said, oh, the budget deficit went up because you cut taxes, go look at where the budget deficit is. It's in mandatory spending. It's in some of these underlying programs that have their own problems that we need to fix. We need to make Medicare a financially stable program that was important to people, but it's going bankrupt. Let's not let it go bankrupt. Let's fix it. But cutting taxes brought in more federal revenue, and it's worked every time. You go look at states like New York, at the state level, these experiments are playing out too, by the way. And then you go to, let's use California versus Texas, and let's use New York versus Florida. Florida and Texas have no corporate income tax. California and New York have the highest in the country, and businesses are fleeing those states, California and New York, to go to Texas and Florida. And those governors keep adding more taxes onto their millionaires and billionaires and trying to demonize success instead of going, geez, why are these businesses leaving my state?
yeah.
Oh, it's not a mystery. It's because they're going to states with lower taxes. Maybe I should lower my tax rate. That sounds like a radical, crazy idea, but they still won't do that because they just believe in this orthodoxy that higher taxes help the common good, and it hurts the common good. And in fact, it hurts the lowest income levels the most. And we've proven that you can help people at the lowest income levels be part of the American dream again and rebuild the middle class again by cutting taxes, creating more jobs, and creating more opportunity.
And that's what excites me, is that you have small businesses, which are the lifeblood of this country. We have 33 million small businesses. They employ about 99% of the people in this country. They are the lifeblood of this country. And can you just explain in a couple of minutes as to, how tax reform helped small businesses? Because they saw, and I've spoken to them, and they said, before December of 2017, I had to lay off people. After that, I was expanding, I was bringing people on. And explain a little bit how tax reform really just kind of gave juice to these small businesses.
Yeah, because we were what we were really seeing was the evaporation of America's middle class. That's what was going on. I mean, the millionaires and the billionaires that the left loves to demonize, they're going to figure out how to get through even tough times. And and that means businesses were cutting back or moving overseas, and we saw that in high numbers, where great American companies were moving overseas, not because they didn't like America, but because they needed to stay afloat. And if you're an international business, your competitors paying 15% on average and you're paying 35%, you don't need to be a math whiz to figure that out. If either you stay here and go bankrupt or you move overseas. How stupid was that we let that happen over decades? And so once we created a competitive environment, we saw those jobs come back. And this was the real, I think, highlight of it. And that was bringing manufacturing back to America.
Yeah.
And there were two things that happened. One, we cut taxes to make our country competitive. And then at that same time, we had an American energy revolution. And
Yeah.
Trump was really leading this cause because Barack Obama was part of that, Green New Deal of killing all fossil fuels, kill the coal industry, oil and gas were the enemy. And so we're just importing more oil and gas from Russia and from Venezuela and countries that hate us, and sending our money to Middle Eastern countries. How stupid was that? Trump said, let's make our own energy. And we had a revolution in shale, and it was all American technology too, by the way. And so we had low cost energy at a time when we had a competitive tax code. All of a sudden, we couldn't find enough workers. And so people that were unemployed for years, 10 million people that just gave up looking for work, started coming into the workforce again. That's why the federal treasury rolls were rolled flush with cash, because people started paying taxes again. And they had a shot at the American dream again. Most importantly, home ownership, small businesses were benefiting from it the most. This idea that trickle down economics doesn't work and all. Go look at the numbers. The people benefiting the most, everybody benefited, by the way, in every demographic group. But the ones who benefited the most were the ones at the lower income levels. The middle class that had evaporated, we were finally building it up again. Obviously, COVID-19 threw it off track for a lot of reasons. We know we need to reopen our economy again. It's starting to happen. Those job numbers you talked about, that got you so excited this morning.
Yeah,
that got a lot of us excited. We need good news these days. Clearly, that was good news to show that, yes, things got really bad. Over 40 million people filed unemployment claims, but they want to come back. Small businesses want to come back and are now coming back.
And taking a deep dive into some of these numbers, I mean, you look at the hospitality industry, I think added 1.2 million jobs. I mean, that's astonishing. Manufacturing
That was great news. Yeah.
I mean, just across the board, just really good news. And talking about energy, what's fascinating is that these jobs are good paying jobs, these energy jobs. We're talking about six figures. We're not talking about energy jobs.
These are careers for people. You don't need a college degree to be making over $100,000 in the energy industry. And clearly energy was taken on the chin prior to COVID-19. Even today we saw oil prices coming back up. And that's a condition of global demand. Global demand had cratered with COVID-19 from about 100 million barrels a day the world was using to about 50 million barrels a day. No surprise, the oil went to a negative price a few months ago, which was just crazy to see. But now it's coming back up again. And then hopefully we get it to a stabilized price where you get production going back up again. Those are great jobs. We're exporting oil to other countries around the world. So our friends don't have to get their energy from Russia. They can get it from us. And by the way, in the meantime, in the Northeast, because Governor Cuomo won't let them build pipelines in New York, New England states, and these are all left-leaning states, but they ought to be able to have the right to get cheap energy from America like everybody else. They have to buy their oil from Russia because Cuomo, and it's like, show me how that's helping carbon emissions around the world when you now put the oil on tankers from Russia and you help Russia's economy because they just hate American energy. People need to heat their homes in a cold winter. Shouldn't they be able to do it with lower cost American energy? But I mean, Cuomo doesn't have to answer for anything. And oh, by the way, Cuomo's the guy, shifting course a little bit, who gave a mandate at the beginning of COVID. He said, if you're a senior citizen who is in a nursing home and you go to the hospital and you test positive for COVID-19, you have to go back to the nursing home, even if the nursing home can't take care of you. Governor DeSantis, for example, to contrast it, gave the opposite order and said, if you're a senior who's COVID positive in a hospital, you can't go back to the nursing home if they can't take care of you. Do you know that there was a 900% increase in COVID deaths from nursing home patients in New York versus Florida because of that? Thousands more people died in New York that shouldn't have died because of that deadly order given by the governor. He later admitted it was a mistake. The press won't cover it. But I mean, 42% of all the COVID deaths in America were nursing home patients. They only represent 0.6% of our population. And it wasn't like all nursing home patients were dying at the same level. Some died because of really dumb decisions by some states like New York and New Jersey. But those same deaths didn't happen in other states where they made smart decisions. We've got to be smart about this. We're Americans. This is something we all need to learn from. The press doesn't want to highlight it because it's governors who are Democrats who made bad decisions. They want to try to dump it all on Trump. It worked really well when people made smart decisions. Trump, by the way, was giving the order at the federal level through CDC to not send those nursing home patients back to their nursing homes. Cuomo violated that protocol and people died from it.
And now it's time to open the economy, and we want to do it quickly but safely. And I know that you're on a subcommittee that is looking into how we do that and to make sure that happens. And my thought is that there is a level of trust that a consumer has to have with a business. If the consumer doesn't feel safe walking to a business, they're not going to patronize it, and vice versa. The business needs to feel safe with the customer, with the consumer. So, and I think we're starting to see that balance. We see partitions, we see masks. So, as your position on the subcommittee, how would you make sure that we open this economy quickly but safely? Because we have to have a level of trust that when we walk into an establishment, that we're going to be protected and we're not going to get sick.
Yeah, and this is so important for small businesses because again, I mean, breaking the myth of the far left, small business owners, they care about their workers,
Yes.
they care about their customers. They don't want to put people at risk. We're learning more about this disease every day, but the good news is I'm a data guy. There's so much data out there now to show that you can safely reopen. States have done it, and go look at the headlines when states like Georgia and Florida were opening early and open and widespread. The media was just scoring them like they're going to kill people and people are going to die and ventilators are going to go. Not one hospital was overrun. Not one person was denied a ventilator in America. Even when New York said we need more ventilators, they got more ventilators and they never used them. But the bottom line was the shut-in was all specifically about not making sure our hospitals were not overrun.
Right.
No hospitals were overrun. In fact, now hospitals are begging for paying customers again. Their patients need to come back. And people are dying right now because they're staying at home, not going to their doctor, not getting the mammogram and the colonoscopy and their cancer treatments. It's having real negative effects. And so those states that opened up early, they had safety protocols. Nobody compromised the whole safety of people. And so let's get that myth off the table. You can absolutely open up again. You've got the temperature checks where you can literally quickly scan. You can even scan mass crowds now for sporting events. And I'm on the task force, like you mentioned. President asked me to serve on that task force to open the economy back up again. And I've worked with heads of industries from all over the country, from every industry, to local small businesses, my local restaurateurs who are opening up. They want their customers back, and they don't want anybody to be at risk of getting COVID in their restaurant. So they're wiping down the tables even more. They're distancing the tables. The wait staff might have masks on. But in the end, people want to get back out. We're a social society. We're not a people that hide in fear. I mean, geez, America's faced so many challenges. We're about to celebrate and remember the anniversary of D-Day. And just think about what the greatest generation did to go and take the beaches of Normandy against all odds, but they didn't hide in their house or their Higgins boat. They went out there and they confronted the enemy, and we ultimately won that challenge. We're going to win this challenge, not by hiding, but by confronting it in a smart way, not by risking anybody's safety, but by learning best practices and then going out and getting things going again.
Boy, you really struck a nerve because my grandfather was in Normandy, and
What heroes.
He helped liberate a concentration camp. He came home to his wife and my mother, who was I think 2 at the time. And you know what he did? He got a job. He went to work, took care of his family, had 2 more kids. And so sorry for that, kind of tangent, but yeah, they really were heroic. And, thanks for bringing that up because,
well, we need these reminders of what makes America great. America isn't just great because we wake up and go, hey, we're number one. I mean, if you want to go out there every day and compete, there's somebody trying to take your place if you're number one every single day. And we're fine with that. We're Americans. We're not afraid of competition. It makes us stronger. You don't get fat and happy and complacent, but you work hard every day because you have a passion for what you do. We love freedom. We don't love freedom to go conquer other nations. We used our freedom to go liberate nations, like you said, to get people out of concentration camps so that they can live again and they can have freedom again. That's why we risk our lives. That's why people risk their capital every day to go make things better for others, to help create opportunities for other people. The left will never understand that. And you know what? That's okay. We just need to focus on what we do best and what we know works. And that's these fundamental conservative principles.
And these small businesses, and it breaks my heart the past 2 months to see these small businesses struggle because these are people that cashed in their 401k plans. These are people that were just barely, able to start a small business, whether it's a diner, a small retail shop. These are mom and pop businesses that, working on very thin profit to be, if making any profit before it anyway, just doing it because of the love of opening a business and embracing the American dream. And to have this thrown at us, this 2-month, 3-month shutdown, it breaks my heart to think that some of these businesses won't come back. So I just want to thank you for, passing the Paycheck Protection Program to get these folks back. But I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about China, because they're at the center of the controversy in this pandemic. And we've been working really hard on the World Health Organization, and we've been trying to blow the whistle on the World Health Organization for years.
Yeah.
And finally, the president is making the right steps to do this, to untangle us from the World Health Organization. And what can Congress do to help move that along and make sure that the World Health Organization doesn't have such influence over us when China influences them so much?
Right, David, look, it's so important for us to focus on China and on WHO. I've been very vocal about this. I appreciate that the president said we're pulling the funds because, look, I mean, there is a role for good medical research and data all around the world. By the way, the Centers for Disease Control does a pretty good job of getting that out there, but the WHO used to do it. And it's important for the world to have those kind of respected entities, but WHO is not that anymore. They've lost it. Tedros is an embarrassment. He needs to step down. They need to go rebuild their credibility. If they want the money from America and other countries, look, if they want to be funded by China and be a mouthpiece for the Chinese Communist Party, that's where they are. They are that now. We surely shouldn't be funding it, and I'm glad we're not. But everybody else needs to know that, number one, China lied to us and to the rest of the world about this disease. They could have shared that information early off, going, we don't really know what's going on, to move on, but it's bad. Y'all come in. And by the way, the health experts in China wanted our doctors to come in. CDC was ready to go. And then the Chinese Communist Party stepped in and go, nope, we're not letting anybody in. And then they let people leave their country and go all around to Europe. We stopped them from coming in, by the way, and I'm glad the president made that call, even though he was criticized by the left. Where are they now? Because now, we should have acted sooner. We did. But the people that went into Europe and spread the disease in Europe, we didn't know that was going on. And then they came here. And so we need to, number one, hold China accountable for what they did to lie to the world and create this disaster, that deadly disaster that killed so many people. But then we also need to hold WHO accountable because they lied as well. They said human-to-human contact wasn't going on when we knew it was. And that caused lives too. WHO should have never done that. If that's where they are as an organization, they need to clean house. They need to get rid of Tedros and anybody else that's going to move away from health and safety standards and just be bought off as a corrupt organization. They've done a disservice. So I'm glad we're detaching from them. We've got smart people in America. We can listen to our own advice. And by the way, the rest of the world wants that advice too.
Yeah, and they gave North Korea an award for anti-obesity. I mean, talk about just ridiculous and tone deaf to give a country like North Korea an award for anti-obesity. Well, guess what? When your people don't have food, you're not going to have obesity.
Right. So, a little bit ironic, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's shameful what the World Health Organization has done. But I want to thank you for your time, and just let's end on a really positive note. These unemployment numbers. I mean, listen, 13% 4 months ago would have been horrific, right? But considering,
but they were saying over 20%. The experts were predicting over 20%. And today, look at what we're seeing. I mean, people are starting to reopen their businesses again. People are risking everything again because they believe in the American dream. They believe in what's great about this country. There's a lot of negative stuff out there right now. There's a lot to be concerned about. And we have to deal with those challenges as well. But we also need to look to, I mean, look, I'm a sports guy. I love sports. Sports are something that unify people, that give people hope again and a sense of normalcy. And I had a call earlier this week with all the heads of the sports leagues, and Roger Goodell and Mark Emmert with the NCAA and NHL and NASCAR and all the PGA. They're all coming back. And even NFL and NCAA said, we're going to play our schedule starting in the fall with fans in the stands. That's their goal. We need to set those goals. There are people out there, these fools that are saying, oh, we can't do it. We need to wait for a vaccine. There would be no economy to come back to. People would die in larger numbers by staying at home and not coming back if that was our goal. Our goal needs to be, we're America. We're going to figure this out. We're smart. We ought to have a goal of having sports come back and bring us back out again. Show how you can do big events again, safely, smartly, but not cowering in fear of confronting this challenge and going and getting things going back again and creating that opportunity for people to have the American dream again. We all need to see it. It's real. Let's get back out again and see our friends again. Maybe we won't give them hugs right now and high fives, but there's a lot of other ways where we can celebrate what's great about America, and we're starting to do that. We need to keep pushing.
Can you promise me something that the next time the Saints play the Philadelphia Eagles in a playoff game that you don't beat the Eagles, because that was a heartbreaking loss. Obviously, what happened the next week to the Saints was probably even more heartbreaking. But
I know we've had too many heartbreaks. We can't have close games anymore because I don't want it in the hands of the referees. We need to get out there and take care of business. But look, I think most people will be rooting for the Saints to beat Tom Brady and the
oh,
and
without
the
a
Tampa
doubt.
Bay Buccaneers in that opening game, and then we go to Vegas to open up their stadium the second week. That needs to happen. We need, like, I'm an LSU graduate. We need to go defend our national title. Coach O, I've talked to Coach O. Y'all go Tigers. He doesn't want to run out of Tiger Stadium to an empty stadium. We need to be tailgating and frying up alligator and jambalaya before the game, and then going out thousands of people showing we're not afraid of ourselves. We're not coughing on other people, and we're washing our hands when we're around other people, but we can be around other people again. I mean, this is America. Let's just go and reestablish the great freedom that this country loves.
Well, again, thank you. And I'm hoping that the positive unemployment numbers we saw continue, that this is a V-shaped recovery. We've never seen anything like this before, shutting down an economy. So we're going to be analyzing this for years to come. But I want this to happen now, because people are out of work, and to see these numbers, it really was a bright spot in my day, in my week. And hopefully, with your help, we can keep this going. And always feel free to reach out to TPA to make sure we get the message out that this is a strong economy, to keep taxes low, to keep energy flowing, and to keep regulations down, because that's how we're going to stay a wealthy country.
Well, thank you for what you do, Dave, at the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, and what y'all do to promote freedom. We got to keep fighting for it. It doesn't come free, as we know, and there are constant reminders, like as we observe D-Day, there's a price for it. But let's go out there and pay tribute to all of those people who paid the price by fighting for freedom here every day when it's under attack.
Great. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. God bless.
All right.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thank
Y'all
you.
take
Have
care.
a fantastic weekend.
You too.